Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to the session Pakistan as a preferred destination for share services. As you all know, share services is something which is emerging today in Pakistan, and Pakistan is thought to be a really preferred destination considering the talent that Pakistan holds and the cost that Pakistan gives them with the perfect work that we do in Pakistan. ACC has been focusing on share services since really long, and we want that our members and affiliates and all the people out there should be focusing on this topic as well. So to begin this today's ceremony, I would want to invite Sajid Aslam, who is head of ACC Pakistan, to tell us more about it and what is this program all about today.
Thank you, Sidra. Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon. My name is Sajid Aslam and I'm head of ACCA Pakistan. Shared service or outsourcing business is something which is very close to my heart और ACCA में हम इस पे काफी ज्यादा काम भी कर रहे होते हैं. Recently हमने जो ACCA members के हवाले से count किया था, there are more than 200 people who are in a shared service business. That means they have set up their separate entities and they are providing onshore or offshore shared services. This is on top of the freelancing community, which is working as an independent entities or as an individual in the market. Why shared services? एक बड़ा important सवाल होता है कि जब हम industries की बात करते हैं, तो why not we are talking about the growth in the textile or infrastructure or energy sector or some other like the tech. We go with the heavy mechanical side of it. I think जब हम पाकिस्तान के demographics देखते हैं तो हमारे पास एक certain unique advantage है पाकिस्तान में, which is the age. When we look at the number of people or the percentage of population which is less than 30 and significantly educated and trainable, I think that's where the opportunity lies. Compared to the rest of the world, जहाँ पे Eastern Europe में अगर आप देखें या China में आप देखें, तो you are getting more into the aged population. That's mean they need a workforce which can work within their own economy. और उसमें advantage क्या होता है जब आप एक global फुटप्रिंट की बात कर रहे होते हैं? सबसे बड़ा एडवांटेज तो आपको जो होता है, आप एक $300 बिलियन की इकोनॉमी से निकल के एक $81 ट्रिलियन की इकोनॉमी का पार्ट बन जाते हैं. तो सबसे पहले तो साइज ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी बहुत बड़ा चेंज आ जाता है. और पाकिस्तान के लिए अगर आज आप एक इंडस्ट्री सेटअप करना चाहें, अगर आप फिजिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की बात करें, एक फिजिकल इंडस्ट्री की बात करें, तो शायद आपको 2 से 3 साल चाहिए कि उसकी कमर्शियल प्रोडक्शन उस मैस लेवल पे पहुंचे जहां पे आप उसको मटेरियलाइज कर सकें एक्सपोर्ट के पर्सपेक्टिव से. सीपैक का एक बहुत बड़ा एडवांटेज ये है कि उसने आपको लॉजिस्टिकली और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वाइज हर जगह पे कनेक्ट किया. बट देयर इज अनदर एडवांटेज व्हिच इज अ डिजिटल हाईवे, जो कि आपको इस वक्त पूरी दुनिया से कनेक्ट कर चुका हुआ है. सो उस डिजिटल हाईवे को अगर आप यूज करते हैं तो बहुत सी सर्विसेज जो पहले हम शायद लाहौर में बैठ के लाहौर के लिए और कराची में बैठ के कराची के लिए कर रहे थे, इस डिजिटल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ने इनेबल कर दिया है हमें कि आज हम जाके वो सारी सर्विसेज आउटसाइड पाकिस्तान और विद इन पाकिस्तान इन द डिफरेंट सिटीज हम वो प्रोवाइड कर सके. एंड व्हाट डज इट टेक? इसके लिए आपको चाहिए क्या है? एक लैपटॉप, couple of people who are trained enough, and then a little bit marketing. आपको जो डिजिटल फुटप्रिंट आपको चाहिए, आजकल वेबसाइट भी सेटअप करनी हो या आपने एक वर्ड ऑफ माउथ के थ्रू और एक आपकी बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट की एफर्ट के थ्रू, you can get yourself introduced to the potential client in Pakistan and outside Pakistan. और इसके बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट के भी बहुत से डिजिटल मीडियम्स अवेलेबल हैं, जहाँ पे ईमेल से लेके और एक आपकी ऑनलाइन इवेंट तक अगर हम बात करें तो वो पूरी की पूरी जर्नी आप घर बैठे कर सकते हैं या विद इन द ऑफिस विद इन द सिटी आप वो पूरी जर्नी डेवलप कर सकते हैं अपने लिए. सो अगर हम इसको देखें तो पहली चीज जो हमारी लिमिटेशन आती है वो एक्सेस टू क्लाइंट है, जो आज इस डिजिटल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की वजह से या डिजिटल हाईवे की वजह से वो हमारी फुलफिल हो गई हुई. दूसरी चीज आती है बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट एफर्ट, तो डेफिनेटली अगेन आपकी डिजिटल प्रेजेंस और पूरी दुनिया की वो नीड. So there is a need which we need to convert into demand. वो need है कि they need the young talent to work for them और वो digital services deliver कर सकते हैं, चाहे हम IT की बात करें, finance की बात करें, legal की बात करें, engineering की बात करें, even second opinion in the medical sciences की बात करें, तो आपको ये सारी की सारी services, just examples, अभी हमने कुछ few examples की बात की है, data management की बात करें, cyber security की बात करें, तो ये सारी services ऐसी हैं जो कि digitally deliver हो सकती है. और इसमें आपके पास क्लाइंट की ये नीड एग्जिस्ट करती है. द क्वेश्चन इज दैट आर वी अप्रोचिंग दोस क्लाइंट्स? सो पहला सवाल बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट की साइड पे आता है। दूसरा सवाल आता है कि क्या हमारा टैलेंट जिसने वो सर्विस डिलीवर कर दी है, यानी सर्विस डिलीवरी के जो क्वालिटी स्टैंडर्ड है, आर वी अवेयर ऑफ दैट? क्या ये हो सकता है कि मैं एक डेट और टाइम कमिट करूं उनके साथ एंड आई डिडंट शो अप फॉर द मीटिंग, और आई कमिट समथिंग एज अ डिलीवरी ऑन अ सर्टेन डेट एंड टाइम, एंड देन आई एज्यूम कि नहीं मैं इसको 1 घंटा आगे कर लूं या मैं 1 दिन आगे कर लूं विदाउट हैविंग अ राइट काइंड ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन। इसका मतलब ये है कि सर्विस डिलीवरी के लिए भी आपको एक सर्टेन स्टैंडर्ड, सर्टेन फॉर्मेट और सर्टेन प्रोसेसेस डेवलप करने पड़ेंगे अलोंग साइड विद द सर्टेन कल्चर ऑफ डिलीवरी। पाकिस्तान में अभी सर्विस ओरिएंटेशन उस तरह नहीं है जिस तरह बाकी दुनिया में ग्रेजुअली डेवलप हो रही है, लेकिन स्टिल हमारे पास गिवन द नंबर ऑफ टैलेंटेड पीपल वी हैव गॉट अ गुड पूल who understand the value of time and the value of commitment. So again, the people who can value the time and commitment, they can also they are the best suited to get into that field and set up their shared services based on the team they develop and based on the competencies they have right now. देन हमारे पास नेक्स्ट लेवल आ जाता है एथिक्स, क्योंकि जहां पे बहुत सी चीजें आएंगी वहां पे आपके पास एथिक्स और प्रोफेशनलिज्म सबसे पहली डिमांड होगी जब आप रिमोट वर्किंग मोड में होते हैं या ऑफशोर आउटसोर्सिंग के मोड में होते हैं, जिसको आजकल शेयर्ड सर्विस का नाम दिया जाता है। तो अगर आप ऑफशोर आउटसोर्सिंग के मॉडल में काम कर रहे हैं तो फिर एथिक्स और प्रोफेशनलिज्म बहुत ज्यादा काउंट करता है, आपकी रेपुटेशन बहुत ज्यादा काउंट करती है फॉर द रिपीट वर्क। सो आपने इसको स्लोली बिल्ड करना होता है, gradually build करना होता है। You will start slow, but that will end up in a right kind of reputation, and the word of mouth and your business development effort will help you to land to the bigger businesses or a larger businesses or larger number of the businesses as well. हमारे पास पाकिस्तान में बहुत सी एग्जांपल्स ऐसी हैं जहां पे 60, 70, 100 की टीम सेट के साथ 1000 से 1500 के जो क्लाइंट्स हैं, ऑलमोस्ट 250 to 300 पाउंड्स अ मंथ के क्लाइंट्स जो हैं, उनको यहाँ से सर्विस किया जा रहा है। इसके अलावा आपके पास बहुत सी एग्जांपल्स हैं जहाँ पे हवावे ने इंजीनियरिंग का सारा बैकएंड जो है पाकिस्तान में सेटअप किया हुआ है। टेलीनॉर, जैज को अगर आप देखें तो वो भी अपने बैकएंड ऑपरेशंस जो हैं वो पाकिस्तान में सेटअप कर रहे हैं। तो देयर इज अ सर्टेन रिकॉग्निशन, एंड एसएनपी ग्लोबल को अगर आप देखें अगेन, तो दे आर आल्सो सेटिंग अप देयर बैकएंड ऑपरेशंस इन पाकिस्तान। सो दैट इज देयर इज अ रिकॉग्निशन that the talent is available and they have a capacity to deliver. It's just they need to be a little bit trained, or if you are trying to do this business, you have to be more aware of the ethical standard, the professionalism standard, communication standard, the value for time and the value for the commitment. So आपकी कॉम्पिटेंसीज जो है वो चैलेंज नहीं है, आपकी कॉम्पिटेंसी पे बहुत अच्छी रेपुटेशन है। जो चीजें हमें बिल्ड करनी है रेपुटेशन वाइज, तो वहां पे हमें थोड़ा सा एफर्ट करने की जरूरत है कि हम पाकिस्तान को अगर प्रेफर्ड डेस्टिनेशन देख रहे हैं तो एज अ रेपुटेशन ऑफ पाकिस्तानी और एज अ रेपुटेशन ऑफ द कंट्री वी हैव टू बी मोर केयरफुल दैट व्हाइल वी आर डीलिंग विद द ऑफशोर और ऑनशोर क्लाइंट्स। From the size of opportunity, just to give you a one small reference, 2019 में जो फिलीपीन की कॉल सेंटर की सर्विसेज की एक्सपोर्ट थी वो $26 बिलियन से ज्यादा थी, एंड नाउ दे हैव गॉट अ सेपरेट मिनिस्ट्री अराउंड द कॉल सेंटर। सो उन्होंने एक इंडस्ट्री पे फोकस किया है और उसमें ऑलमोस्ट 1.5 मिलियन लोग जो हैं इस वक्त एंगेज्ड हैं। और इफ यू लुक एट द एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ फिलीपींस ओनली ऑन द कॉल सेंटर साइज, दैट इज लार्जर देन द टोटल एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ पाकिस्तान। पाकिस्तान में दूसरा जो अच्छा इंडिकेटर है, अगर आप जब हमने किसी भी आउटसोर्सिंग कंट्री को रेफर करना होता है तो देयर इज अ सर्विस लोकेशन इंडेक्स होता है, और पाकिस्तान में फ्रॉम अ कॉस्ट पर्सपेक्टिव एंड अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ टैलेंट पर्सपेक्टिव, पाकिस्तान इज हाईएस्ट higher than the China and India and Malaysia and Vietnam in most of the areas. So that's mean कि हमारे पास लोकेशन इंडेक्स के लिहाज से भी अगर हम देखें तो हमारे सर्विस लोकेशन इंडेक्स के लिहाज से भी देखें तो हमारे पास कुछ एरियाज हैं जहां पे हम लोग ज्यादा बेहतर प्लेस्ड हैं कंपेयर टू अदर पीपल। फिर हमारे पास आ जाती हैं एग्जांपल्स। क्या हमारे पास पाकिस्तान में वो साइजेस अवेलेबल है ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के जो लार्ज स्केल पे ऑपरेट कर रहे हो और एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ सर्विसेज में एंगेज हो? तो यस, इफ यू लुक एट द स्टेट बैंक रिपोर्ट्स, आपको सर्विस एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ सर्विसेज में जो है आपको एक ग्रोथ नजर आएगी, चाहे वो आईटी की सर्विसेज हैं या आईटी इनेबल्ड सर्विसेज हैं। और फी जमाना कोई भी ऐसी सर्विस नहीं रहेगी जो आईटी इनेबल्ड डिलीवरी ना हो सके। इवन दैट्स मीन के डिलीवरिंग अ ओपिनियन, delivering an opinion on the email is still a IT enabled services, और उसके टैक्स इंसेंटिव्स भी अवेलेबल हैं। उसके लिए पाकिस्तान को इटसेल्फ बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत है कि हम इस एरिया पे और इस सर्विस सेक्टर पे फोकस करें। और इसमें एक और जो बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है जो हमें जहन में रखनी है कि जब हम शेयर्ड सर्विस सेंटर्स की बात करते हैं तो वो हमारे इकोनॉमी का एक बहुत बड़ा पार्ट है जिसको इनेबल कर देता है। वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट ब्रिंगिंग द यंग गर्ल्स एंड यंग वुमेन to the mainstream economic activity. क्योंकि बहुत सी कल्चरल और फिजिकल लिमिटेशन जो आज खवातीन को रिमोट एरियाज में फेस करनी पड़ती हैं, एज सुन एज यू गेट इनटू द शेयर्ड सर्विस सेंटर, तो आपकी वो लिमिटेशंस जो हैं, जो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन से रिलेटेड है, ऑफिस एनवायरनमेंट से रिलेटेड है या कल्चर से रिलेटेड है, आप घर बैठ के उनको एज अ टीम मेंबर इनेबल कर सकते हैं कि आप उसको सुपरवाइज करें या वो खुद अपने लिए बिजनेस सेटअप करें और वो लोगों को सुपरवाइज करें, एंड दे ट्राई टू develop a business line or a business segment which is good for Pakistan, like export of services and enabling the young women and the women population to contribute towards the mainstream economic activity जिसको हम बात करते हैं, जहाँ पे हमारी 50% population इस वक्त उस तरह engage नहीं हो पा रही, not because they don't want to or they are not able to, just because के वो cultural limitation या physical limitations जो हम as a society sometime उन पे place कर रहे होते हैं. But given that कि हमारे अभी results भी आए हैं और last time भी जब हमारे results आए थे तो global toppers में we are seeing those girls, very young girls, which are outperforming globally to most of the people, and they are becoming a global topper in certain subjects. So ये बहुत बड़ा evidence है कि हमारे पास, और not necessarily coming from the main cities, even from the remote cities we are seeing that trend. So that mean कि हमारे पास capability set भी है, ability भी है, infrastructure भी है, just require a little bit focus and a little bit nudge that this is an area जहाँ पे हमें एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ सर्विसेज पे बात करनी है, पाकिस्तान को एज अ ब्रांड प्रमोट करना है और पाकिस्तान के टैलेंट को, और जो कि बहुत इस वक्त अवेलेबल है और उसकी रेपुटेशन बहुत अच्छी है, तो हमें उस रेपुटेशन को कैपिटलाइज करना है और लोगों को पाकिस्तान लेके आना है. जब वो बात करेंगे ऑफशोर आउटसोर्सिंग की, तो पाकिस्तान शुड बी अ पार्ट ऑफ दैट बोर्डरूम कन्वर्सेशन एंड आवर टैलेंट शुड बी फ्रेम्ड एंड branded in a way that the people can recognize कि किन एरियाज में हमारे पास वो टैलेंट है और हमें एक मैसिव इंडस्ट्री साइड पे डेवलप करनी है. हमारे पास इसके बहुत से एविडेंसेस भी हैं. आज की पैनल कन्वर्सेशन में आप उन लोगों को भी देखेंगे और सुनेंगे भी कि हाउ दे हैव डेवलप्ड देयर बिजनेसेस एंड व्हाट आर देयर फ्यूचर प्लान, how they feel about the talent in Pakistan and how they feel about the opportunity outside Pakistan. There may be certain challenges which you will find out, but given the size of opportunity, I think it's worth exploring this area and it's worth overcoming those challenges for the betterment of Pakistan, for the betterment of society, and creating opportunity for our youth and our generations to come, and bring that reputation to Pakistan, which can really add a lot of value in our export of services segment. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much for joining today. I hope you will find value in this conversation, and I'm very confident that the people who will get engaged today, they will start thinking in that dimension and direction. There is a great opportunity and we have got a great talent. It's just a matter of a matchmaking. Guys, thank you very much, and over to you, Sidra.
Thank you so much, Sajid. I think you have perfectly elaborated all the things that are required to think about to our upcoming youth, and specifically, as you mentioned, about women out there who can easily explore this place of shared services. We can move ahead now with the panel discussion. We have a very esteemed panel today, which will be led by Asad Hamid Khan, who is Market Head Business Development. What are the panelists? What we are talking about? What are the people who are here to give you all the guidance? They are Muhammad Asif Mir, who is CEO and Managing Director, Systems Limited. Then we have Athar Imran Nawaz, Chief Executive Officer, Cyber Limited, which is a Lexin Group company and venture partner for Lexin VC Fund. Then we have Heather Patel, who is Partner Taxation from EY Fort Road. Then we have Barkan Saeed, who is Chairman Pasha and member of Prime Minister Task Force on IT and Telecom. I really thank you all for coming here and giving us this specific time you have. I know आप लोगों का time बहुत important है और आप हमारी youth के लिए ये time निकाल के यहाँ पे आए हैं. I'm really thankful to all of you. Asad, over to you ताकि आप इस चीज को और बेहतर तरीके से इनसे हम लोगों को और knowledge दिलवा सकें.
Thank you very much, Sidra. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for sparing your time, starting with Athar Imran, Asif Peer, Barkan Saeed, Heather Ali Patel. So I just wanted to confirm, and if we could just test if everything is working at the end of the panelists. Yourself, Barkan, can you hear me properly? Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes. Asif Peer, Can you please confirm if you can hear us and see us?
Yes, I can hear and see you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, and Heather Patel, I think, is the window. Assalamu alaikum, Heather. Good
Hi,
to see
Asad,
you.
how are you?
Very well.
Thank you very much for inviting me and a very warm welcome to all the delegates here.
Fantastic. So we are now, I think Athar Imran joined and probably he's joined us back. So Athar, can you hear us now? Yes, Athar, can you hear us and the rest of the panelists? Not a problem. It appears that Athar probably is having connectivity issues. So, uh, thank you, Sajid, for setting the scene. I think if I were to pick up the takeaways from the conversation that you've had, Pakistan as a preferred destination for shared services, the focus remains on the opportunity, the size, uh, obviously complemented by our talent, which has age as an advantage, is trainable. Then the focus in terms of CPEC, has historically been dubbed as a game changer. The sort of impact that it is expected to bring is expected to be of the same scale as the digital highway. Now we are not dependent on bricks and mortar, so that is the additional advantage. We talk about ethics and professionalism going to complement the way we deliver our services and the way we standardize the quality. Very aptly mentioned by you that if we are talking about the attractiveness in terms of uh, as a location for setting up a business, whether which is gauged through the Global Service Location Index, Pakistan ranks much higher than the other economies like China and India. So that's a positive to look at. Last but not the least, we are talking about an inclusive initiative. This shared services will help us really bring together the 50% of our workforce to contribute, which is our women, who will be able to benefit from remote working and help take forward this opportunity, contributing towards our economy, contributing towards our GDP, export of services. So I think a lot has been said by Sajid, but if I were to just focus in terms of the uh, the recent, I would say, trends that we have seen, the recent good news or information that has been pouring in terms of the government's initiative around the information technology industry or the IT enabled services. So there has been a lot of focus in terms of, you see, competitive export oriented structures. There has been talk about facilitating the freelancers. We have been talking about the special technology zones and the recent government initiative of setting up a separate authority to take forward this. So all the things that Sujit mentioned. So there's this term that we get to hear, which is called exonomy, the impact for exponential economic growth and impact. So we have talked about, we have been hearing about approvals of 60 IT parks. We have heard about the potential of $5 billion per annum export potential. We talked about hundreds of thousands of new employment opportunities. We're talking about subsidizing the local tech companies in terms of enabling this exonomy or exponential growth and to have Pakistan's first few unicorns. We have talked about bringing back talent in the form of our non-resident Pakistanis and also to leverage from their expertise, their even capital if they want to invest in Pakistan. So, so when we talk about all these things, so the key things that come to our mind is that what is required to really be on the map for shared services is a critical mass of skilled talent, a consistent supply of talent. We are talking about attitude and work ethics, which Sujit very rightly pointed out. We talked about the brand of our country. So we have the Global Service Locations Index, but what about the brand of our country, Pakistan? We talk about the value chain, which is going to really help the geographical proximity of those technology zones that we're talking about. We're talking about digital acceleration and penetration at the same time. We are talking about the legal and regulatory enabling or enablement through relevant laws, through the intellectual property rights. And last but not the least, there has been a very strong focus in terms of foreign exchange regulations, whether they support the payments inward and outward from Pakistan, especially one growing community within Pakistan, which is the freelancers. So, so without further ado, I'd move over to our worthy panelist number one, which is Mr. Athar Imran. So, Athar, having this background, talking about Pakistan as a destination which is preferred for shared services, you represent a large conglomerate and one of the premier business process outsourcing companies uh, from Pakistan. So, we would like to explore what are the key decision-making criteria when organizations such as your group are looking for establishment of onshore or offshore outsourcing businesses.
Thank you, Asad. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for getting every one of us here. It's a very important topic. So, as a large group, so Laxon Group, I mean, it's traditionally has grown through manufacturing and services over the last 70 years. But if you look at our history over the last 10 to 15 years, especially after 2000, the major focus has been on the technology. It's on the Cybrid, then we Storm Fiber, Rapid Compute, Cybernet. So we've made significant investment in the technology space, most of it inside Pakistan. That is services that are directed towards Pakistan. Whenever we, as a large conglomerate, think of a new initiative, the key thing to come is that it has to have scale, right? Either it is very strategic or it has to have scale, or preferably a combination of both. And that was the starting point about 13 years ago for Cybrid, which was a spin-off from Cybernet. They took a small, a unit away from Cybernet and spinned it off, and we have grown, a multifold over many years. The key criteria of us entering first into the BPO space, and then over a period of time, we built up a complete solution framework around BPO, is that there is so much scale in potential in Pakistan in terms of BPO or shared services, provided we are majorly focused on exports for that, number one, and then also that we do not just make it a plain vanilla call center or a simple, very specialized service delivery. It has to be backed with a lot of complementary services. So, for example, we built up a large technology team and a digital marketing agency to complement. So, if you're talking about what are the criterias that we use, if you have a solution offering, that is companies in Pakistan, especially large companies, if they take a solution offering, that is, you have the service delivery, you have the technology, you have the digital services, then I think you have a very large potential to grow. Secondly, we grew in multiple cities. I think that is an extremely important point, that just having a large center in one city may not be an ideal space. We grew in, we have offices in 5 cities. We're trying to go into what we call the second tier cities. That's extremely important because there's a large talent that is available in cities that we generally don't associate with technology services. And I think that is where a lot of work needs to be done, because backed by on the shared services, there's also a need of a society that is job creation, right? And that is, if you generally, if you use the BPO as a service delivery model, you can contribute a lot to creating a lot of jobs. And that's the reason for us starting up the Peshawar operation in collaboration with KPIT board. So I think as a large group, we would always look at something which has potential to scale, which is export oriented, which has not just one offering. If you can complement it with offerings, because a lot of times us and Cybernet and Storm Fiber and Rapid Compute, we go in together for a lot of things. That makes things much easier. And I think that's the synergy of large groups that can always leverage each other's functions. And I think the last thing that I want to say on this is that you mentioned the talent. I think the talent is always there. A lot of times when we're talking about a shared services model, you can train the talent. The people are very enterprising. We have seen people coming into our operations where they have could not even speak proper English for 2 to 3 minutes, and within 2 months, with training and with capacity building, they completely can hold a 45-minute conversation with a client completely end to end in English. So I think that is doable, provided you have a focus and you have a commitment towards it. I think that's our strength, because our ability to speak English is a great strength that we don't sometimes realize. So I think that's a few of the. I think there's a lot of other data points, but some of the key points that I just wanted to highlight upfront,
Thank you,
especially
Athar.
from the perspective of a large group.
Thank you, Athar. And I think the point that you've made about the English-speaking ability of the Pakistan nation, so that is one USP that Pakistan would continue to have. So and it's very, I would say, it has not been marketed to the point that Pakistan is taken to be part of that trainable talent. Next, I think very important from your side is that we are supposed to have a diversified product offering. We are able to integrate that, complement that through services which are probably not seen to be mainstream for that particular segment. So next, Heather, thank you much once again for joining us. You see, as a partner for Ernst & Young, having been responsible for developing a regional outsourcing hub in Karachi yourself, and also leading the outsourcing, the work stream and business segment of EY Pakistan. So so now we have seen that within this space of services, automation, and especially the likes of RPA and AI have picked up. So, and this is something that the big four globally are targeting and focusing. So, how do you see EY exploring this area for Pakistan, uh, leveraging on the center of excellence that you are leading right now?
Thank you, Asad. I think with every passing day, you see the digital revolution getting bigger and bigger in the world, and you keep seeing things which sometimes baffle you, and you just can't imagine where the thinking process is going. But at the same time, like every other large organization, the Big Four also is striving to keep themselves at pace, and they're keeping on investing more and more into technology and tech-based services. So we here in Pakistan, being part of the regional firm, and we have a very good integrated structure. Pakistan is in the process of being now, becoming fully integrated with the region in all aspects, in all operational aspects, and effectively becoming like a one firm in the whole region. So that will enable us to further work very closely with the region, and the entire area, which is the EMEA area, Europe and Middle East and North Africa. This is all comprised of one area. So is very keen to explore the human potential in Pakistan, and the amount of talent we have in Pakistan. And if you are aware, we have a separate company also here which is supporting the Middle East practice on the audit side, where there's a considerable number of resource stationed there separately, reporting directly to them, apart from the support that we here within EY Four Doors we provide. Now this is going to expand in what is happening now is that they are looking at different areas. First, it used to be confined to back office for accounting services, for taxation services, and especially in Saudi Arabia, we share a lot of burden from them of their workload. But now they're looking at more areas where recently we have started collaborating with different offices on HR specialty areas, and doing organizational restructurings and very large things for their clients over there with our resources sitting here. So again, this is going to be a big avenue for foreign exchange into Pakistan. We'll be earning a lot of service fee for that. Another important area that is growing is because you might have come to know that for the last 3-4 years we are now uh, partnering with SAP for SAP implementation in Pakistan, and we have undertaken a lot of large assignments like full scale S4 HANA implementation in Angro, and now we are doing for Getron, Novatex as well, and then many more for KE as well. We are involved in that. So taking that experience from us, the region is very keenly looking at the set of skill set we have here in Pakistan, and they are thinking about asking us to expand this skill base here, and use this platform for rendering services across the whole region. So technology based services are definitely the focus in future. Not only SAP, but other digital platforms they would like to explore. And as as you said, and as Sajid also said, we have abundance of resource. It's a matter of channeling them into the right space. So things are very exciting here within the organization, and overall the environment that we have in the country about finally I would say that the service sector has been looked at as a really a big potential after many years. I think ACCA and your platform has taken a very big role highlighting this. I think we've been saying this since the last 4-5 years, but now things seems to be moving in the right direction. Just a few things I would like to point out, that where there are a lot of positives, a few negatives have happened very recently, which I think representatives from Pasha also here. So they'll say that the tax regime has been tried to a bit shaken up, and advisors and the especially the companies who have invested a lot into this IT industry and the IT enabled industry, they've become a bit frenzy about it, that what's this all about. But yes, it's going to be a bit more difficult, and there have been instances here and there where they have challenged the IT enabled scope of services. In my mind, there should be no ambiguity, there should be no definitions to this. It has to be services rendered from Pakistan which brings in you foreign exchange from abroad. It has to be that simple. Although you have to have the AML checks and everything, and that the genuine money is coming in, genuine service rendered, but you can't take you can't start now exploring that what is IT enabled service, what's covered, what's not covered after 5 years when a company has been set up, because then that will be very detrimental. Because as if global partners are going to come here and set up their back offices and their the support centers here, and if we 5 years down the line go and do these things, it's going to take not very long for them to reestablish somewhere else. So I think it's been a long journey, and we are now beginning to pick up, I think. So let's not disturb this. That the message that I think this forum should say. There are a couple of exemptions that used to be for consulting services that you render from Pakistan abroad. That exemption has been withdrawn completely, and there is an exemption for talented resource which renders technical services by going abroad. That exemption has also been withdrawn. So IT enabled service is one part of it, but this is another part, and we checked with State Bank. There's a sizable amount of revenue that they book under this ad, that's coming exchange flow from outside Pakistan. So we are representing to FBR. We are putting it up with the Ministry of Finance and the government, that perhaps we feel there is a misunderstanding, and this also they wanted to take this to the tax credit mode that they've done, but that's not been done. Hopefully, if it gets sorted out within the next 2-3 months, by the time the finance bill is presented, because this ordinance that recently came is going to become part of the finance bill. So there are changes here for the IT sector as well, for the IT enabled services here. So hopefully things will prevail, and I think the sanity has to prevail, and because otherwise then as we are in a competing world. So if the tax rate goes from an exempt category or a reduced rate category to full 29% or 30%, you're not going to be competitive in the world. So that message has to go from your forum as well, that you have to be very careful in the initial years. You can't change policies like this, because otherwise people from abroad will be, like they because when they even give services to somebody in Pakistan, it takes a lot of time to set up those services, and you can't the advice you can't change your support
The
services
basis
overnight.
and the assumptions.
Yeah. So that message has to go very strongly that policies have to remain consistent and stable for a very long time.
Thank you, Heather. So, you see, we had a later set of questions where we would have picked up the challenges. So, we'll definitely park that for that. But thank you for highlighting. I think the important conversation right now is that how Pakistan is scaling towards that digital acceleration and revolution, and what needs to continue this momentum. And obviously, consistent policies will and have played a strong role in that. So moving on to Asif. Yes, Asif, thank you very much once again for joining us. You see, representing the largest IT export company in Pakistan, and you have been a part of it for a very long time now. So how you see the opportunity going forward for Pakistan in IT and IT-enabled services, number one. And secondly, if you could also share what you have done right over the period to drive this success from Pakistan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Asad, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. Basically, I think the first question is opportunity-wise. I think we all know that opportunity is there, and when the pandemic happens, after the pandemic, the opportunity size has become bigger and larger. So that is. That open up outsourcing opportunities for everyone in Pakistan. General perception has improved as well over the last, I would say, year or two. So generally, the demand is there, opportunity is there in both IT outsourcing as well as BPO and contact center outsourcing. Both opportunities are there, and I think more and more opportunity because the resources are scarce in certain areas which we work. Around the globe, and there is opportunity definitely exists for Pakistani companies to capture that market space. And the second portion that you asked, the question that what we have done it differently or what we have done to get the growth at systems, we have done multiple things. To I think the number one, I would say the difference between other companies, I would not say the large companies, but other mid to small size companies in Pakistan. The one difference is that we have invested and set up our offices in the markets, basically the regions where we would like to do business mostly, right? US, Europe, Middle East, Australia, and Pakistan. Of course, what that was one thing that we have invested people, we have invested resources, and that really helped us in getting the business from those markets because customers get the confidence when they see when they see that there is a company who is there with a single throat to choke. They can provide services when it requires. There is no legal challenges and so on and so forth. So that was the one important element. And the other is, of course, we are employee-owned company. So we believe in that culture. We offer, of course, we offer stock options and others to our key people, and we try to retain them. So we nurture that employee ownership culture into our company, so our retention get better. And the largely third big, if you need to believe on the supply side as well, that you need to constantly invest in your bench strength, your virtual bench, your as a real bench, because that's what you need to make sure that you are thriving for the growth, you are ready for the growth. When there is a demand, you are not struggling for supply side as well. And again, demand generation is the key. So pushing the demand and doing the alliances with the principals and partners around the globe definitely help you in business development to generate the demand. So I think that's the basic things what we have been doing. But I think there are many other initiatives, but I'll explain later. But these were the high ones.
Thank you, Asif. And I think what really stands out is this phrase that be ready for growth. So, so if we have been able to invest in our capabilities, and at the same time, I think generating that confidence in the market that you're eventually going to support and serve, to have your presence over there. Thank you very much. Yes, Barkan. Is he a very active person? He's currently the chairman of Pakistan Association of Software Houses, and you would see him uh, in one city in one day, and within the next day you would realize that he's in another city. So he's been very proactive. So Bakan, in your uh, uh, capacity as leading your own venture, which is BizTech Solutions, and at the same time wearing your chairman hat and your Pasha membership over the last so many years, you've had I'm sure the opportunity to work with a lot of young talent in Pakistan, especially in the export of services domain. So, how do you see that going forward? Pakistan is positioned to acquire the skills that are really going to help us differentiate and capture the future of work or the future workplace when you talk about the likes of blockchain, AI, data sciences, robotic process automation. Yes, uh, and obviously complementing that with becoming the hub of specialized services in these domains. Yes, please.
Right. Thank you very much, Asad, for giving me the opportunity. And about overall, I think I did wanted to touch the topic that our friend from EY, Heather, has touched that, and Sajil mentioned in the beginning that we had a lot of good news is coming, like SCCP things happening at SCCP, State Bank, and special technology zone, and now all of a sudden we have things like removal of tax exemptions happening, which has created the distrust in the industry for the future and also in the international players. So, and that is why I think that is something that I've been active on very recently. But because you've asked me the question about the young talent and the export of services of Pakistan, I think everybody would say there is a huge potential. But let's put some numbers to it. I think there are around 45,000 graduates studying in the universities right now in just the computer science area, and then there is maybe another 100, 200,000, I don't know, which are studying in other areas, and then there are students who are FSC students even, or A-level students. I'm talking about the whole ecosystem. How much is the potential? So if you add just around 50,000 good programmers to the ecosystem every year, that translates into around $1 billion export opportunity every year. And if you then add, for example, even if you target the OA level students, which are good for companies like call centers, and you add all those who are the accountants and the MBAs, then that and you can train them in things which Sajid mentioned in the beginning, like ethics, professionalism, and the companies have had high success in doing that. I'm sure Other did mention that how they have been very successful and how they have been able to capitalize just on the talent of speaking English and convert them into useful resources which are billable. So definitely there are many areas which are uh, commodity like English speaking, but there are areas which are high end and not very high end, just simple programming. So if you have, I'm sure if you train as a country 10,000 mean stack programmers or Angular programmer or JavaScript programmers just these days, there are many companies who can just bill them for $2,000 each easily, not a problem, because the demand globally is in millions just for JavaScript programmers probably. And so then there are, and because you talked to me about the special technologies, like maybe the next generation technologies like data sciences, blockchain, artificial intelligence, unfortunately I think that we do not have enough, we are not natural to these, in these technologies. We would have to do a little bit more effort if we have to become the hub of these technology. And the reason is that we technically just have probably 2,000, 3,000 good graduates who are overall coming from the entire 45,000 that we are producing. If we are to become the hub of these future technologies, we have to not only train the resources in the good resources, because not everybody is able to work on the latest technology. Maybe uh, as someone can apply a artificial intelligence algorithm, which a lot of our 3 months, 6 months courses are doing. There is a presidential course as well. Maybe you can just teach people how to apply a machine learning algorithm. But doing advanced cutting edge work, or the work that the companies require for setting up a data science shop in Pakistan, that is not something that you can teach in a 3 months boot camp or a 6 months boot camp. You have to have the very solid base for that and teach people in that. Definitely, there's a lot of work in even AI. There's low level work, there is high level work, and there is all kind of work. Or even in cybersecurity, there is simple audit, but there is very high end work as well. So for that to enable, I think there has to be a serious effort from the government. First, we cannot just target everything. We cannot just become an expert in AI and cybersecurity. And if we are as a country, we have to see which one is our core area, which we are natural to. For example, we have a lot of math stats students, hundreds and thousands of students that we have trained over the years, and there was a craze for math stats. So probably we can train them for data sciences, and some people have had success in that. But the key thing is that the government has to bring in work, because whenever you talk about data science and AI, the key thing is data. With GDPR and the problems around data, who's going to give you the data? We need to have our own local source of data made available to the people, and local projects created if we are to seriously work in these areas. Otherwise, I think we should just forget about it, and we should work on the low level and mid level resources, which we are really good at, because there are a lot of small companies that are there which are working in call centers there, and you don't need to be very big or have offices abroad to get work in mean stack programming, call center. A lot of small companies are there, and the big companies hire from those companies. In all the fourth generation technologies, you have failed to see that happening, and you have also failed to see even bigger companies struggling. I mean, you have seen that the bigger companies, I would not take names, who tried to set up artificial intelligence shop in Pakistan. They are struggling to get resources in Pakistan. So
Burkan, you see, I think the important point that comes up from your conversation is that if we are to really leverage the fourth industrial revolution and the fourth generation tools that we are just talking about and create that critical mass, we need a serious effort, obviously, from the policymakers in terms of creating that enabling environment for training, because training is very important for them, and and it has to be beyond the 3 to 6 month courses. So thank you, Barkan. We'll come back to you for another targeted question, and then it will be a question for the panelists. So I just got to know that Heather Patel is going to be with us for up till 4 p.m. So I'll just now put a question to Athar and Heather, that in terms of managing career aspirations, so there's a strong outsourcing uh, team or function that you have been managing. So it would help us if you could share how you promote diversity in all forms within your workforce, because that is something that we have spoken about, and diversity with a view of inclusivity.
Uh, Heather Saab can go first, I think, if he's short on time.
Okay, I'm fine. I'm here.
So he's still here, so I think probably you can
Okay.
start.
Okay. All right. It's a very important question, and I think, especially when we're talking about a shared services operation or a BPO operation, you're talking of a large operation, right? You're most likely talking of an operation which is not confined in one office, and it is something which is in multiple cities, multiple offices, and you're dealing with different variations of cultures and things. So, in general, my fundamental principle of running any organization, not only a large or a BPO centric organization, is that you need to have diversity. Now, when we talk about diversity, the first thing that comes to our mind is really, gender diversity, which is, in my opinion, one component or one aspect of, diversity. Even if you look at the SDG goal, it talks about diversity and inclusion that is across ethnicities and religion and any form, any dimension of diversity that you can define, and that's extremely important. Um, we I think it is not good to have. I think it's a must have, because you're dealing with a workforce which is by itself being in various places in such large in numbers. So just to put some perspective, Cyber is about 1,500 people, and we are in 5 cities. Some offices are large, some are small, but in general, I don't think so. There's an area of Pakistan from which some of our colleague is not representing. You need to have, the key thing is to have diversity and inclusion, especially in your middle management and then in your top management. That's extremely important, because it helps in your decision making. When you're making a decision, when you are brainstorming a problem, unless and until you have all these perspectives, and even diversity in terms of the experiences that they come in, the professional experiences that they come in, that they bring to the table. And that's why we've hired people from, in our research division, we hired people from anthropology, from sociology, and all those things, because even for running any kind of a tech operation or starting up a tech business, you need input from all aspects. The only way to achieve that is has to come from the top, from either the board or the CEO, and ideally both. And it needs to be part of and ingrained in the company's culture that we need to increase diversity. For example, we made sure that a certain number of our workforce are always female. So it's about 18% right now, which I believe is a reasonable number, which can also improve, but I think it's certainly above the industry average. But we made a very conscious effort to do that by policies, for example, transportation, by representing them in various forums inside the company. So it has to be part of it. It has to be inculcated into the policies. What mistakes some of the companies do is that they do a very top-down way of doing it. That they, for lack of a better word, a quota kind of a system in various things, which never works. It can work in short term, and it can be a first step, but as long as you know that it's leading towards an inclusive workforce. So in my opinion, that's absolutely essential, and the only way to do that is a day in day out focus on it. And I think we generally have been able to at least focus on it. Whether we have been able to achieve what we want is still, I think, we still a long way to go, but at least we have been very methodical and consistent about how to go.
Thank you, Athar. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. For me, the key takeaways were coming from the top. The tone comes from the top, and it's embedded into the culture. And thank you for really picking up SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. It's something that I'll pick up later in terms of the impact that shared services, this ecosystem, IT-enabled services, outsourcing, and bringing digital acceleration to Pakistan can really expedite and also accelerate our achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Yes, over to you, Heather, in terms of sharing how you promote diversity within your organization.
I think, as my friend said, that diversity has got so many different aspects to it. There's, first of all, geographical diversity. It comes with the multiple offices you have, how much spread you are across the across the country. If you take Pakistan, and for that matter, if you talk about EY now, a regional firm that is it's a one firm of 14 countries, and hopefully Pakistan will be the 15th one. So there's tremendous diversity if you look at it from that level. Coming back to Pakistan, we are culturally, we are 4 provinces and 4 different linguistic provinces altogether, and then so many languages spoken here. And if you come to our Karachi office, you'll find people from different backgrounds in Karachi, especially, and from rural Sindh as well. We have got a lot of talent coming from there. They become a good percentage of our force. If you go to Lahore, obviously you will find people over there from different cities and different bringing in different cultures, different uh, altogether. I would say mindset also. So it's good that you have all those flavors. And then if you go to Islamabad, you can see people from the north. There I've seen trainees coming there from right up from Balakot and beyond that area, and from Gilgit, uh, as far as from places. So it feels very good, when you work together with all those people around your country, and you hear about things from their end, and it adds a lot of flavor to your working, especially when you're working in a group. So that's a very important aspect, and actually for such diversity we've never had to take an effort to do that. It's natural because we welcome people to join the organization from all fields. Our merit criteria is open to everybody. There's no like any criteria for any background that we are looking for people. No, that's not it. So everybody is welcome. Yes, for gender diversity, yes, we are doing a lot of effort, and we have to do a lot of effort because the EY's standards are very high on that, and EY's gender diversity is above 33%. That's the norm that they want. In Pakistan, in certain areas, it's very difficult. For me, if you tell me I am leading tax here, for tax it's very difficult. I'm standing at the moment at 16%. My target is 25% minimum. So for female to survive in tax somehow sometimes becomes difficult. I don't know why, but I promote it a lot. But for in other areas, if you go in audit now, if you go in consulting side, you'll find a lot of diversity, and it's growing day by day. Pakistan, as things are changing. Women are more and more coming towards higher education, so there are a lot of openings for them, and it's like that. So it's as I say, as my friend said, it's very important to have diversity, and mix of people, mix of gender, all this thing, to blend the firm, and create a good environment in the firm. All this is very important. So we take it very seriously, and we look forward to improve ourselves more on that, and that's how as a country we should be moving forward.
Thank you, Heather. And I think for me, the most important takeaway has been that you've assigned yourself target in terms of meeting those. And Pakistan has really worked a lot in terms of developing the women in finance and women in profession, and not
Yeah.
just in the accounting and finance, but on the whole. And we're very pleased to share, echoing what Sajid mentioned earlier in his conversation, is that for the last so many attempts, most of the place winners, whether they are national or global toppers in ACCA in a particular subject, we have seen the ratio of women future members growing in that, which is a very good, healthy sign, and not just from the main cities in Pakistan, but also from the second tier cities. So thank you, Heather.
So if you allow me, I just forgot about one diversity, and that's the background of qualification diversity. Which we as firms we always used to be called chartered accountant firms, but today if you look at us, we have got diversity. We've got ACCs also, though you can say they're also accountants. But then we have got now college graduates coming in from good universities, from LUMS, from IBA, from with the finance background. I've got you'll be surprised. I've got engineers working in some areas, who've qualified as engineers, because we need input on if you're talking about developing HR and redesigning organizations, you need people from those backgrounds to understand the real work. So there are people from that background. Then we've got law graduates working, a lot of them working with us. So there's diversity in qualification as well, I think, which blends the an organization quite well. I've seen wonders happening with this change in our mix of qualification and
Qualification
coming
mix.
in. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, so Barkan and Asif, now coming on to you. You see, whenever we talk about the offshore outsourcing model or market of freelance experts, especially growing within Pakistan, so collections and remittances come up as one of the key challenges. So there have been recent changes made to the relevant regulations, especially for micro payments. So, in your view, how can this be further enabled? So if I can start with Asif and then move on to yourself, Barkan.
Yes, that's great. Uh, I think from offshore outsourcing perspective, of course, as we all know, the freelancing is definitely one of the core topic. I think Barkan has been in touch with a lot of folks from a freelancer perspective that how they are going to collect the payments and so on and so forth. But I think beyond that, what I see is there is a different issue from a freelancer perspective. I think there is no documentation available. I think even from freelancing community that what kind of a services people are providing and what there is no forum that is official forum that help them to get the work, help them to get the remittance, and coordinate on their behalf on to the banking channel, because sometimes we hear the different channels that even they can't open the accounts and they can't receive the money into their bank accounts or so and so forth because they don't have any accounts and they go through these alternate channels to pioneers or whatever. And I think it's a huge challenge, and since it is not documented as well, so even though the money comes to Pakistan, it is not documented as export services, IT export services as well. So I think it's definitely it's a big opportunity for us to encash these talents that what we have available. And what I have seen recently in post pandemic, I think it's a prominent trend. Not like our people even are approached by a lot of people, a lot of companies, small, medium companies directly to enable them, work them as a freelancer because they're charging a very good rate and these are the scarce resources they know. They approach, handpick them, and they pay them a very good money as a freelancer because these are short-lived projects. People don't understand. They are attracted by the dollars and pounds that they get as a freelancer, and they lead the career from that perspective. But since these, as I said, this sector is freelancers are very important and core to we are third largest, I believe, but I'm correct me, but we're the third largest so far. I think what I recall as a from a freelancing perspective, and it's a huge potential for us to. If we document that, I think it will be huge. If government can help in payment industry, if government or banks can facilitate them, even give them some advantage for them to bring the money through official channel, our exports will be our export numbers will change. You know, right now nothing is documented, so export numbers we all talk different numbers. You know, once we take official statement numbers, it's different because it doesn't count these type of payments as well. So I think opportunities for freelancers are there. There is a great potential for sure. People are looking at Pakistan as freelancing market for enterprise, even small mid-life size projects. We are seeing that pressure in post-pandemic for sure. Uh, how to take this opportunity and how to make their life easier. I think there is a lot of work needs to be done, and I'm sure Barkan will share some light because he's been working closely with freelancers.
So thank you, Asif, for sharing your feedback. And I think, yes, you're right. I think we are the third largest country globally in freelancing. Uh, However, I think, like Asif mentioned, that there are certain things, like, for example, we have problems at many ends. I think you also mentioned in your question that my payment is a big problem for the freelancers. So technically, we have to see what is the problem in terms of, for example, as a freelancer, how can you ask an international customer to send you money? One is that you ask him, which is the standard way that you send him that, okay, I want to wire transfer you. Now, wire transfer is very, very difficult, very expensive for most customers in the US and Europe. Most banks even don't offer online wire transfer. You have to go fill a form and send the wire transfer, and you can't afford that for small payment. Then there is a lot of talk of PayPal and why is PayPal in Pakistan. So PayPal is never going to come to Pakistan. First, it's not a business case for them. Second is that they are not interested in a regime where they cannot keep a wallet, US dollar wallet, and it's just sending the money because State Bank would definitely never allow them to keep Pakistani residents' money in US dollars. So that is a no-go area. So I think what is needed from the what freelancers need is that they need a payment gateway, and that payment gateway needs to have a US dollar wallet linked to it. That is the key thing. So that is why there are companies like Payoneer which are providing this service where you can keep a US dollar wallet and whenever you want, you can bring the money to Pakistan. Although the service charges are a bit on the higher end and they still don't offer a payment gateway. That is a big challenge. So you can send an invoice to a customer, get the payment in your wallet, and you can keep giving to Google and Facebook from that Payoneer account, and you just bring the money that is there to Pakistan. So if
So,
that kind of
Berkan, sorry for interjecting. In terms of the payment gateway, there's a recent development by the central bank, RAST. So, is that expected to embed this feature going forward? Is it part of the roadmap for further development of RAST?
how can a government institution build an agile payment gateway? Yes, with the kind of regulations that you have in Pakistan, it is going for the state bank, the regulator itself, to make a better payment gateway of its own. But how is going to be agile? I mean, imagine the state bank responding to someone to integrate a payment gateway in their website. Not going to happen. I mean, with a country like Pakistan.
So,
So
you
you
see
have
that happening in the private sector space.
I mean, if the state bank becomes an easier regulator, I mean, Raza Bakir has done a lot of good things, and he has been a very good state bank governor. I've seen a lot of good things from him, but he's still governing the state bank, which is the regulator, and is a tough regulator. I have seen the payment gateway companies having a very hard time with state bank. They are easier to get a license in US. It's easier to get a license in Qatar or Middle East, but it is very difficult to get a license in Pakistan and then comply with the state bank requirement, where they are with the stick in their hand at all times. So, if you don't allow the private companies or the private startups to easily set up payment gateways, those payment gateways, not RAST or not any other payment gateway, can fulfill the requirement of companies. And I think the startups get so tired dealing with the state bank that I don't see any chances of innovation in them. Like they want to do something special, like build a US dollar payment gateway or discuss that with the state bank. I'm sure state bank is very open now than it used to be, but we need a US dollar till we build a US dollar payment gateway, which is which has not only a payment gateway but a US dollar wallet. The payment is not going to come to Pakistan. It's going to stay abroad in companies like Payoneer and PayPal, which are going to hold 200, $300 million of your money every year. It's still a big service. Like this recently, FPR has started sending notices to the companies, the freelancers who had Payoneer accounts, just because the payment was coming from Jazz Cash. We did not give them away. Whatever way we gave them, FPR has now gone after it.
But
So
so Barkan, we will pick up this segment because that is going to be covered separately, and for that I will be especially the challenges bit. I'll be coming on that for to yourself, to Athar and Asif. So there are now two questions left.
sorry, I keep coming to the challenges again and again. I am in the challenges.
Absolutely. So that is going to be, that was in fact my next question. So you have paved the way. So I have noted that in terms of what we can probably propose as a recommendation is to have a USD foreign currency payment gateway, which has the ability of wallet, so that we do not have valuable foreign exchange caught up or stuck overseas, rather than it being brought to Pakistan. So I'll start off with the challenges bit, and I'll close on a very positive opportunity recommendation centric note. So any comment? So coming on to you, Arthur, right now. So what you believe are the top two challenges that will hold back Pakistan from being a preferred hub, not just for shared services but for IT-enabled services, which is currently being envisaged with the setting up of institutions and authorities like the Special Technology Zone Authority. Yes, please.
So, Asad, again, when you're talking about a shared services organization, it is something which is going to be a large organization, most likely in terms of the number of people, turnover, and all that. Picking up a point that Barkan was referring to, we in our country, ideally, it is not very conducive to do a business if you are a smaller organization or if you're a startup. Let's accept it. I being part of a large group. If you're a large group, I'm not saying that you have more money so you can do more things. It's also that you have put in systems and structures and you know moats around your business that help you deal with everything that's being thrown at you from the regulators, from the tax authorities. And for me, that's easier for me to manage because we have specialists and we have groups that just deal with all the tons of notices that are regularly coming, especially at about 3 times the rate in the last 12 months as compared to everything. And dealing with multiple tax authorities, because as a company like ours, it's practically in all tax provincial tax authorities jurisdictions, and then consolidating and then figuring out that Punjab does PRA does it a different way, this SRB does it in a different way, and probably both don't make sense, so you have to figure out what to do. So I think it is the and why there are more notices and probably the main
Sorry, Athir.
objective probably is coming
Yes,
from the fiscal. The, can you hear me?
yes. Now we lost you
Can you?
briefly.
Okay. Yeah. So the FPR has targets, SRB has targets. In order to meet those targets, they would do certain things. They would put more pressure, and it completely flips out the business. So imagine a large organization, a global organization, having a shared services model, and they have to deal with all of those things. So it is not that they won't have the capacity or the money or the set of consultants or anything that they needed. They can put up all those things, but that doesn't make sense. They won't do that because it's just too much of a hassle. But also, and that leads to the second risk, is that things are changing so rapidly and generally in terms of the policies. You give an exemption and then you take back the exemption before the time period is over, right? You put
So,
in a
Athir,
certain yeah,
the point that you've
sure.
just made, yes, I think there's talk about fragmentation. You talked about the provincial tax authorities, four separate provincial plus the federal. You talked about right now in terms of engaging with so many different organizations. So, do you feel that for the enablement of IT-enabled services, or let's say to truly realize the vision of a digital Pakistan, do we need a single window regulator interaction? And do you see that happening in the short term?
You certainly don't want to be deal with so many authorities. That's one. Even if you put in a single window operation at the back, if it is still the same thing happening, you're just having a so you have to think of the entire process end to end. Sometimes just putting up a facade that enables gathering and information dissemination, that is also not helpful. There has to be consolidation. There has to be a single uh, way of thinking across the provinces and across different policy making forums. That's absolutely mandatory. We are in Pakistan. We'll do business in Pakistan. Half of our revenues. I think I'm probably an outlier here. Half of our revenues are domestic. Domestic businesses also has their own set of challenges. And when you talk about domestic and export, new things coming up. But absolutely, there has to be a unified way. I can deal with a higher tax rate probably as against dealing with all this, stuff going around different. You don't know what tomorrow brings. And that's again a big challenge for any international investor coming in when they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If they're very clear that okay, it's not good, it's a high tax rate, but this is going to be what it is for 10 years. There is at least consistency, and they know what they're dealing with. But even if the
So, thank
situation is good today, if they know that something can change at a whim tomorrow, Khan and I were there when the the domestic tax rate, increased from 1% to 8% out of nowhere. That's tax on revenue, not on profits. Suddenly, we're dealing, 100 rupees ke upar aap, dealing with 92 rupees,
Absolutely.
and not. So, and it was a mess. We don't know what to do. The services business are volume based, less margins, high volume based business. So I think that's definitely a challenge, and that cannot be addressed unless at the policy making level. I mean, as a company, I cannot
So,
address that.
Athar, picking up on this point, and if I take this point to Asif, because obviously all of you are dealing with exports, you're dealing with local authorities, you're dealing with the multiple regulators. So Asif, in terms of Pakistan, picking up on ease of doing business and using that as the USP, not just to enhance the foreign direct investment, but also to really help the local businesses grow and have a direct impact on the export of services. So, where do you feel is the best solution available if I were to ask about the ease of doing business and overcoming the regulatory barriers?
I think if I say that I think it really varies for different size of companies. Like in which phase of the organization you are. Like uh, for the company size like us and other big companies, it's very different kind of a challenges we face. And for smaller companies, they have different size of challenges. Ease of doing business in Pakistan and IT, I think everybody knows it can be definitely much better for what we are. And as Arthur mentioned as well, there are multiple regulatory authorities, and I think for again, I would say like challenges are different for different size of the companies. So if there are smaller companies opening up like with 50 people, 100 people shops, there are many in Pakistan. They don't have the formal structure. They don't have the lawyers and CFOs and so on and so forth. So they go through a lot of challenges because it's not like one window solution for these companies dealing with these tax authorities and local, provincial, and federal, and all SECPs and EOBIs and all of them. So it's not easy for them because they don't have the infrastructure and support staff to deal with it. For But the companies like us, yeah, we it's now in routine, and if things happen, there are people to deal with those, right? So, but ease of doing business, I think when you attract FDI, when you ask the companies to come and operate, I think in Pakistan, that's where it matters the most. Because then you are talking about, okay, look at this. This is how easy it is set up, how easy to send money outside of Pakistan, how easy to register something, how easy to uh, fly in people from outside, how easy this is. Like you can set up and you can pay local taxes and so on and so forth. Nobody's going to bother. It's tax free, blah blah blah. Right? And look at this beautiful parks and facilities, infrastructure that is available in our country. When you have those things, then it's easy of doing business comes when there is no infrastructure and there is no single window solution. Then of course, for us, the companies have different sort of challenges at different sides, and I think Pasha Burkan, of course, must be hearing various complaints from various sides of the company. Right? So small companies have their own set of challenges, freelancers have their own set of challenges, and with the companies like us, we this is routine. This is business as usual. Because we we have those people to deal with these authorities and regulators and so on and so forth. So that's how I would say that's what it is.
So thank you, Asif. I think this pretty much brings us to the end of our panel discussion, barring just one uh, top recommendation that each one of you would like to actually, make to the government to really grow the IT sector, especially the outsourcing sector.
Yeah, I think it's if you ask for one, of course, there are many we have already given development for many things, but I think top right now I would say is if you ask today's pain and yesterday's pain was different, I think today's pain in the growth, I would say we need to build the HR. We need to build the skill set. We need to strengthen our supply and supply in various areas, not just go for the buzzwords like, okay, we need blockchain people, we need AI people. It's not like that. Look at the demand, what we are going to get, and invest in building the HR in various aspects, whether it's BPO, whether it's contact center, whether it's and whether it's like any sort of development. AI to maybe we know what the demand is coming. Most of the people will agree in the industry what kind of demand. It's not about the buzzwords that we use the AI and then you will get the work. It's not like that, right? So, and if we can get that sorted, you have a good inventory. You specialize on certain things. Like people look at Israel for security, people look at India for outsourcing, people look at like Vietnam for certain things, people look at Ukraine for e-commerce, full stack and full front-end developers, digital transformation people. So we need to come up with some sort of our USP as well. If we have those inventory available, the skillful inventory available, come and invest because there is people business and people are available, highly educated, highly motivated, and we specialize in this because we have the research lab in this, and we've done so some specialization to distinguish us and builds a lot of generalized resources so people can look at us as a resource hub for their needs. And of course, soft skill is essential as part of it. There is one, of course, there are many, but I think looking since the situation has changed, I think if you can't use people, forget about the game.
I think that's a very important point made by you. If we are to really take benefit of our youth dividend, this is how it is going to be. And at the same time, I think what it does is that if we can put the policy, think tank, academia all together, and really have that pipeline, the skill that you have been mentioning. Thank you very much, Asif. So we will. So over to you, Athar, and final comments, that single topmost recommendation for Barkan. So Athar, yourself first and then Barkan.
I think it would be that the policy making that is happening has to be consistent. It should not be ad hoc. It should not be arbitrary. It should be in alignment with the industry. It should be taking everybody's stakeholders into input. It should be progressive. I think I can deal with a tough boss, but I cannot deal with somebody who is whimsical, who is all over the place. I don't know when I come to the office in the morning, aaj mood acha hai ya kharab hai. That's a more difficult boss to deal. Then I know that it's a tough boss, right? So I think it has to be consistency and no ad hocism in whatever policies and decisions. I think that's been my pain point.
Thank you. Yes, uh, Barkan, wearing multiple hats, Chairman, Pasha, board member, Software Export Board, Punjab IT Board, and at the same time, member of the task force of the Prime Minister on IT. So I think it's wonderful to close with you in terms of this recommendation.
Thank you very much. I think what Athar said, policy making has not been an issue. The issue is, I mean, we whatever we recommend, most of the time government takes it seriously. I mean, we gave tax exemption, like we said, okay, tax exemption should be there till 2025. Then Ministry of Finance negotiated with IMF, removed that exemption. So it seems like there is no ownership of the industry. The
Ownership.
problem is we are not textile industry. We are mostly small companies. We cannot become a lobby like them where we are putting money on lobbyists, putting money on lawyers, protesting, that kind of media power. We are not that. So either we become that in this country, which I've started to feel, we should take the path of that association because their path seems to work. Or somebody from the government, if they are really serious, takes the ownership of the industry. And like Mahathir once said to Imran Khan, and I have said this, heard this from multiple people, sit with your top exporters, sit with your top growing companies. We have all the ideas around skills. We have all the ideas around special technology zone. We have all the ideas around what State Bank needs to do, what SCCP needs to do. But we feel like that we are dealing with the government through a weak ministry, which is not very strong enough to take our case or defend our case. Their intentions are right. They support us like anything. But if they are weak in the system, who's going to represent us? So, like in the recent case of IMF exemption, the Ministry of Finance did not even ask the IT Ministry or Pasha that what should we do. They just cooked their own system and implemented on us. Our companies, big names, like Atar said, we don't even know that whether in the tax credit regime we are going to get exemption this year or not. It's going to be in the hand of a commissioner. Even if you are an exporter, all of a sudden you get a notice that we don't believe you are doing IT exports because your website does not have software written on it. So we are going to remove your exemption. So either we become a lobby like the textile industry and start behaving like them, start bringing people on the road, start protesting, start using media, start hiring lobbyists, and then force the government into what we do, which I don't think we can do because we are very different people. Or somebody in the government, most ideally the prime minister, takes the ownership of this industry. Unless that happens, forget $5 billion, forget $10 billion, and forget Pakistan as a preferred destination. This is not going to happen. We are very disappointed in the policy making, in the execution of policy right now. And if we are disappointed, we don't think EY or S&P Global or the big names from the outside, they are going to be happy about investing in Pakistan. Yes, people are going to come because there is a shortage of skill. They're going to come everywhere, but there are other ways to go around that. Set up a company in Dubai, hire resources directly in Pakistan, don't even have a shop in Pakistan. That is what is happening right. That is what is starting to happen right now.
Barkan, my key takeaway is ownership. You've specifically mentioned uh, the policy making consistency. So all these things together, I'm sure that dialogue continuously will help us and take us over that bridge, will make us cross that cliff amicably. So with a lot of optimism and hope that Pakistan, with its youth bulge, enjoying such a young population, ready to be trained, having entrepreneurs like yourself, having the vision that you are representing. So we will overcome these temporary challenges. And I think challenges will always be there. So yesterday's challenge was different, today's challenge is different. What is important is to have a very clear focus and vision in terms of what we expect to achieve. So despite the fact that you've mentioned that, but I'm still optimistic that we can be that $10 billion export industry. We can be that $5 billion per annum. We can probably create over the next 5 years job for 1 million people. If Philippines can do it, if other countries can do it, why not Pakistan? So with this, I'd like to thank you, and if you could just stay on for about 10 minutes more, and if you could be part of the Q&A session of our audience, which comprises of our members, our future members, and also BPO firms that have been specifically invited for today's session to get these valuable insights from the experts themselves. Yes, Rashid, over to you. If you could share any questions that we can pick up over the next 10 minutes, and then we can direct those to Asif, Athar, and Barkan. Yes, Rashid, can you hear us? I think your voice is echoing. Rashid, probably you need to reconnect. Or yes, that. So in the meantime, I'd just like to really uh, mention about my colleague who has been managing at the back end. He's Rashid Khan, our marketing manager. So he's the one who ensures that this virtual studio works seamlessly. Yes, Rashid. I think I am unable to hear you. There is your voice is breaking up again. So, Bakan and Athar, can you hear Rashid?
We cannot. If you can just type the questions in the chat box, we can start answering them there.
Yes, absolutely. So that is what I am actually referring to. This is something that is visible to my colleague Rashid.
Asad, I think I can do it on behalf of Rashid because his internet is not working. Thank you very much to all the panelists for such an amazing panel discussion and Asad for moderating it. So the first question that we've got is, what are the skills most desired by the professionals in the shared services?
Yes, Athar, Barkan. Athar, if you would like to probably comment on that.
So it depends on. So one is the general skills, the other is the specialized skill, depending on what is the actual uh, service that is being delivered in the shared services unit. Uh, so one is the technical skills that would be required. I think there's an accounting kind of a back office, then obviously the accounting thing. So I think that those would be specific, but in terms of the general skills, whatever kind of a shared services that you would set up, I think the English speaking and English communication, not only speaking, but the ability to write and understand. That is going to be extremely important. The communication part, and I think I assume these are the skills that are required by the equipment. Uh, the other is that there has to be a continuous element of training that is going to be present in the thing that so we have training functions that continuously work on the technical as well as the soft skills or the communication skills of all of our staff or colleagues, because it's not just a one-time thing that you need at the entry point. So I think it's not the skill that you require in the professional, but probably in the organizational system that they will regularly have to upskill and uptrain the folks. I think that's probably a more important point than the skill that is present inside the profession.
I think that's a very important message. Lifelong learning should be embraced. That should be the mindset. The skills, the requirements, that they're all changing and evolving for the workplace, and it's important to be continuously relevant. Yes, Sidra, the next
Yes,
question, please.
Asad. We have another question. It says, a new shared service centers should continue focusing on North American and European markets, or they should look elsewhere.
Yes, Asif, if we
Of
can
course, like
leverage.
US and there is no better market in North America and North America is if anyone can get any business from North America, I think that is the best. And then of course the Middle East and East Asian countries comes after that. North America and Europe is tough, no doubt about it. If you are a little focused project, just focus on those markets. There is no better.
Brilliant. It is where the size of the GDP lies, the opportunity.
Okay, the next question is, why IT companies struggle when it comes to scaling up?
Because it's very simple, right? So it's not about it's about the ecosystem, right? So how where would you get the resources? Where would you get the supply from? The ecosystem and the market. Right? So when there is no focus and there is no desire, then the companies can do whatever they can do on their own. They can't develop the ecosystem for the entire country. Companies can develop the ecosystem for themselves only to fulfill and fuel their growth. And of course, it's not about the scaling, you need the demand as well, right? So Pakistan itself has its own set of packages where there is still the travel advisory from US, which is the big market, and people don't want to come. And, we don't have the good infrastructure even to entertain them, right? So it's multiple challenges, but yeah, if really it's required an effort. The scaling is required for everyone, but you need demand and you need supply. So and you need the ecosystem for that. So companies can do whatever they can. Right? But can't develop an entire mainframe.
If
Thank
I
you,
can add
Asif.
a point, if I can add a point to
Yes,
this, because
please.
it's a very important aspect. So adding to what Asif said, I think there is also on the ecosystem side, there is a lack of a culture of merger, acquisition, and investment. So merger and acquisition is probably something more advanced, but even a lot of times, companies do not just grow organically; they grow with investments, they grow with consolidations, and I think that culture does not exist for various reasons. I mean, the regulatory system probably doesn't support it that well. So all the investments that are generally happening, more of them are either in the very early stage startups or in very advanced companies as a private equity investments. But I think the SMEs need to have a culture, and the system needs to support that. And the final point is that the most important person in that system who needs a change of mindset for the company to grow is the mindset of the CEO. A lot of times, people, the CEOs of SMEs, they simply just don't want anybody else coming in. They're happy with a small shop in which they are the majority. They drive the shop. So that small pond, big fish mentality also exists in a lot of our organizations.
Thank you, Athir. So next
Okay.
question, I think Barkan, as representing the entire Software Houses Association, that would be, yes,
Yeah.
please, Sidra.
So the question is, how do you see the rising cost of land and power impacting this sector? Any effects of inflation on wages in the industry?
So land and power, I don't think is a big component of IT companies. It's not a major part of our expense because we are not very power hungry. We definitely need consistent power, which is very much there. Where companies are even willing to pay higher rates on that. If it is reduced, then it's better, but it's not a big component. Land definitely has become a challenge because of and every the challenge with IT industry is that we have to exist in the main cities mainly and because the workforce is there. So the rents have risen up, and probably the special technology zones can do help in that bit. Because the rents have increased from maybe 50 rupees square feet to now even 200 and 300 rupees square feet. So definitely for shared services center, it's a challenge to have to afford land at that much rate or space at that much rate because the margins are very low. But there are still workarounds and solution on that. And also definitely the wages in the industry. Initially, when the dollar rose up, there was a little bit of delay between the salary increase. So the salary just kept increasing from 10% to 20%. But now we have seen in the last 3 months or 6 months after the post-COVID era, because the demand has increased so much, the companies have started paying 20%, 30%. So for all the companies mostly, the wages have gone up by 20, 30% all of a sudden, and that has become challenge for big companies, not for small companies. Maybe for small companies as well. Some companies have went out of existence because it has almost become extremely difficult to hire a resource in 50,000 rupees or 70,000 rupees. In IT, the resources salary has gone up to even 150,000 for a 2 year, 3 year experienced resource. So that has become a challenge, and now the dollar has come down 10%. So for the IT industry, last year they raised the salaries, and now the dollar has come down. So they are billing the same, and now they have to take that 10% hit on themselves. And plus there is impact of tax exemption removal and rising costs on that legal front. So we do expect some issue in that area.
Thank you, Barkan. And I think just to add, so you've mentioned about the likes of the IT parks and the special role of Special Technology Zone Authority. Sorry, it's a Special Technology Zones. But I think the important bit is that it is the connectivity and it is the access to internet, which is more important than power itself when it comes to businesses that we are talking about. Just wanted to add that. Yes, Sidra, next question,
Yes.
please.
So the next question is how IT companies can support manufacturing and other traditional sectors adopt new technologies like 3D printing and be more prepared for fourth industrial revolution.
So mainly, let me go ahead and first answer that. So I think from IT companies' point of view, we are very much service-oriented companies. We are providing developers to the international players, and there is very little product development or even for IR work happening in Pakistan. But I think it's time now that the companies start exploring the ways from moving from services into solutions. Definitely from the government side, the government needs to enable procurement of SaaS-based systems from the local industry. Right now in Pepra, there is no way to acquire a SaaS-based product, I think, because it's there's simply no way. So that is a problem. So companies, I think, need to do that. And from the government point of view, I think because we are a regulatory in nature, we whatever comes new, we start to block it. So 3D printing initially it became very difficult to import 3D printers. So you don't ever see 3D printers sitting in companies because nobody wants to take the hassle. And similarly, there are then drone. First, you were stopping drones, and now you have made a drone authority. So it's almost like from the product development point of view, I think we need a national strategy, not only from the product development but also the fourth IR. Without a comprehensive strategy and someone to execute that strategy, I think it will be a slow case moving up that particular ladder and supporting the traditional sectors and doing manufacturing and all those things, because the ease of business is such a big problem in software. If you go to manufacturing, then becomes the problem of the duty on the parts that you are manufacturing from, or if you want to make some IoT device, if you are importing something, the security regime and the duty regime is going to be so difficult, and then re-exporting it, that you're going to say, okay, let's do it in China. So we have to do a thinking, not only from the policy point of view, but from the execution point of view on that side as well.
Yes, and just to add, you see, for the benefit of our users, or especially future members and students, SaaS means software as a service. So that is the acronym for it. And there are many other acronyms in terms of the services. So it will be good if you could specifically read this up. This is a very interesting, futuristic topic. Yes, Sidra, so if we can
Yes,
just take one final
yeah, this
question
is my
before we.
last final question that I would want to take, and I would want every panelist to contribute in it because it's something which is an emerging thing. How has COVID-19 changed the expansion plans of BPOs? Because COVID-19 was something which was all of a sudden. So has it changed the expansion plans for the BPOs?
If I can go first.
Yes, Atul.
So when it hit, obviously it was the storming phase when we didn't know what's actually hitting us, right? So I think at that time, anything that everybody has planned out on the expansion side, uh, everybody just took a step back in the very short term just to see where it goes. I think when you talk about large BPO organizations, they, in my opinion, seeing where we are in Pakistan and the overall cost constraints and pressures that are coming in the international markets because their economy is also getting hit. I think a lot of work is going to come or can come to Pakistan. I'm very, very optimistic about it, and that has happened. We have grown in the last 12 months. Asif company and everybody, in general, the larger organizations have grown. And the model around expansion is always that you have to expand before you actually get the business, right? So you have to be proactive about it. It's all about leadership and how you define it out. In my opinion, the large BP organizations in Pakistan will expand.
Yes, Burkan yourself, and we can, if we could request Asif to close the session with his response. So Burkan, you first, and then Asif Peer.
So I think that is definitely a question for BPO to answer, and Atul would be the best person. But from an association point of view, I see a lot of companies increasing their size. A word from one of our key top exporters, TRG, Nadeem Lahi, he told me that, if I can quote him here, that when I asked him the same question, and he was saying that with COVID, a lot of companies who had problems because in India and Philippines they were unable to cope up with the work, and because when the workforce went home, a lot of players had to use the Pakistani BPOs forcefully, and once they start using it, they saw the value and they saw the quality, and then they started taking Pakistan much more seriously. So he was saying that it has post COVID, it has become very very easy for us to get the trust of the customer, and which was a huge challenge before. So that definitely that means a lot of work, and that definitely anybody who's getting work they are going to expand for sure.
Thank you, Barkan. And we'll now request Asif to respond to this question, and then we'll formally close this session. Ji Asif, can you please can you hear us? Sorry, Athar, you're on mute.
No, no, I was saying I think Asif is already planning his retire.
Ah, okay. So I think w- I'd like to thank yourself, Athar, Burkan, Asif, and obviously Heather for joining today's session. The key focus today was that if we could understand what shared services growth and contribution means to Pakistan's not just the GDP share, and not just the employment share, but in terms of the balance of payment and the contribution through the export of services, where we can have US dollars growing into Pakistan. So wi- with this and optimism that when we will be having this conversation next time in terms of assessing and evaluating how the shared services has grown, we would probably, I hope and I can foresee that when we have this dialogue in the future, 6 months down the road, so we will have more optimism, more confidence, and probably the bottlenecks and some of the challenges that have been picked up would have been resolved for the benefit not just of the businesses, but also in the interest of customers, because at the end of the day, it's the customers that will decide whether they want our services going forward, and will define and also have an impact on the sustainability of the businesses. So, with this, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. It has been a wonderful session. So, even if you have further questions, we are happy to take those, bring those to the likes of Asif Peer, Heather Patel, Athar Imran, and Barkan Said, and respond to you. So, it's a continuous dialogue. Watch this space. This is a space to grow. Watch the ecosystem, the regulators that have just been set up. So it's going to be an exciting future for this space. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.